Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally, and today I want to read you some stories about the current situation of the Jehovah's Witness preaching work because it's not looking very good. This is a subject I've talked about at length, and I don't just want to yap about it, but these are actual believing Jehovah's Witnesses trying to go online and tell what their situation is like, trying to be an active member of, what it means to be a Jehovah's Witness. Go out there, boots on the ground, doomsday, and preaching that the end is right around the corner. And if people are trying to do the JW shuffle nowadays, I think they're actually more likely to leave that organization than to stay in it. So we're going to have story time and a little bit of a Wally rant. So let's do this. This comes from my favorite little corner of the internet. I refer to it as the Reddit of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's called JW Talk. And here is the original post that starts this conversation. Almost every Monday for the past 6 weeks, I've been the only person at the meeting for field service. The group meets at my house every week, and the support has been less and less each week. A couple of months ago, we had 10 people coming out, but now it's just me. I think the most we've had in the last few months is 5 to 6, which in a congregation of over 100 publishers is really discouraging. I'm a regular pioneer, so I rely on the field ministry group for support to do my hours, but lately I've spent so much time on my own. I don't drive either, so the only way I can get around is on public transport. I've asked others to join me in the ministry or just be picked up by some, but nobody seems to follow up through and actually work with me. It's leaving me feeling so flat. I've had a shepherding visit with the SO, that is the service overseer, and secretary last week, and they weren't very helpful. The secretary said not to worry about hours because they don't matter, which doesn't sit right with me, but that's a whole different can of worms. And the only thing the service overseer said was that he'd simply cancel the group if nobody wanted it, but that leaves me on my own. I'm trying to work my schedule for the next service year, and the way things are going, I'm gonna really struggle. At the moment, I worked out most of my ministry is letter writing because it's the only thing I can do on my own. Most of the other pioneers, including the service overseer, don't take the hour requirement seriously, but are so busy doing Metro, LDC, DRC, etc., that they don't support the congregation ministry. I've tried so many different ways to get some support or people to work with me, but it seems no one wants to make the effort. I just don't know what to do, but I'm feeling flat at the moment. Now, if you've never been a Jehovah's Witness, let me quickly describe the perilous situation that's presented here by our original poster. When you are going to go out in doomsday and you think the best use of your next 8 hours is going to be to warn people about Armageddon, it's nice to have some company. Misery loves company, And so you don't want to just go out there and feel like a goober doing it all by yourself. You want to get together with other people that have the intention of warning of Armageddon. So you... Oh man, just talking about Armageddon made me cough. But you want to get together and you meet either at the Kingdom Hall or at someone's home. The reason you meet at someone's home is because your Kingdom Hall is outside of your territory. That's neither here nor there. Now, traditionally, you'll have a person scheduled and they'll handle the meeting for service. It's scheduled 8:30 every day, and then you have one in the afternoon at 12:30, and then sometimes you'll have one in summertime at the evening at like 5:30. And you'll have someone, and they are to conduct this meeting for service. It's like a 10-minute little deal where you talk about what you might do or what you might say to people in order to get them to become a Jehovah's Witness, and then you send them out on their merry way. This usually would be, like for me in my situation, I would go out pretty regularly on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays was kind of my schedule more or less. Sometimes I would go down to just like Wednesdays for sure and Mondays. But anyway, and those days usually would have, I would say 10 to 20 people show up for the meeting for service. And in the low times, whenever it was done, there would be some times where there was only one car group, but that was pretty rare. You would usually have at a bare minimum like 8 people. That was like on the very, very low end. So there were times when I would show up to one of these little meetings for service and no one would be there. It sucked. It super sucked. There is nothing worse than having to be in a cult and do it by yourself. Doing the cult shuffle by yourself is a miserable experience. The entire programming surrounding the occult mindset is you have this hive mind. You have other people around you doing the same thing that normalize the behavior. And as soon as you are isolated doing the cult shuffle, it is an undeniably strange activity. You just think to yourself, what the heck am I doing with my time? So I did it a couple of times and I made it probably 20 minutes and was like, I am done with this. I'm going home. That was early on in the days. A little bit later on, I was a little more loosey-goosey with how serious I would take the hour requirement, as this lady says. But that's just a little bit of a framework for what is going on here. You have these meetings for service. Usually there's quite a few people. She has it in her own house. Now no one's showing up and it's becoming hard for her. So let's see how she is going to interact with other believing Jehovah's Witnesses as they offer suggestions and comfort for her. So the first person who responded said this: I'm sorry, blank. You pioneers work so hard to manage your hours as it is. I've noticed my congregation is similar. I went to our Thursday group once, and both pioneers, a couple whose home was the group, were still sleeping. They hadn't had anyone show up for that group in months, that they had stopped expecting anyone to show. That are writing, maybe walking to post them, hello witnessing, or walking to drop them in the people's letterboxes, if you are allowed to do that, can fill the time if you are alone. Maybe others have better suggestions. So the very first response is, you know what? We're experiencing the exact same thing. I showed up and the people were asleep. Now remember, this couple, they're a pioneer. Ostensibly, you would be thinking you're either working or you're doing the pioneering. These people were just sleeping in. I would hazard a guess that they were still counting their time. They were pioneering, but what they were actually doing was just sleeping in and chilling. I'm pretty convinced that most people were just faking their hours when it comes to pioneering. I think when you first enter into that arrangement, you're pretty serious about it. But after year 2 or 3, you're kind of chill with how it goes. And if you're in it long enough, you might be like these people where you're just sleeping in and you're, pioneering. But how fascinating that the Jehovah's Witnesses have gotten so lackadaisical with their preaching work that they're just sleeping in, even though the meeting for service is at their house. It's completely something that would have been unheard of when I was a Jehovah's Witness. So this is really interesting to read. And then another person offers their suggestion. I'm sorry you are experiencing this in the most rewarding work there is. We probably have a similar phenomenon here in Norway. Our congregation is also about 150 with 10 pioneers. Many have already gone on holiday, or some of the pioneers have already reached their goal, and that they have other forms of service for which they get some extra hours. They are doing an excellent job for now. Okay? When it's hard to get an appointment or there are no meeting for field service that doesn't work, I go into town, sit on a bench, bus stop when the weather is nice, or inside a shopping center when it's raining. I wear normal clothes, talk about the weather, what people might be concerned about. I don't always get to talk about Jehovah, the kingdom of God, or the Bible, but I have the light switch on. Someone has accepted a Bible study card, and I've been able to follow up the interest later. At first it was scary, but my goodness, so many people need to hear the good news. If I don't do anything myself to fulfill the hour requirement, it's difficult, and many of our pioneers are retired and they don't need to work, and they've already reached their goals. My wife and 1 or 2 others still have hours to go. The service year is over. The most important thing that you already do is that you do what you can do. This is absolutely insane to me, because when I was a Jehovah's Witness, a popular talking point was how long you went on a bathroom break. And if that bathroom break would exceed 15 minutes, you had to not count that as part of your hours. So if you were out there for 8 hours, I made a whole video when I very first started this channel about how Jehovah's Witnesses count their time, and how essentially if you were very strict and serious back in the day, you could spend 10 to 12 hours actually out there, by the time you leave your house and by the time you come home. But you'd only get to count 6 of them because you're not counting the breaks in between. Now, the situation is completely flipped on its head. This person is saying, just go to a shopping center or a coffee shop and have some metaphoric light switched on, go Super Saiyan style, and just have some aura glowing around you. And bada bing, bada boom, even if you don't talk about Jehovah or the Bible, because of your aura, that's counted as preaching now. It is a very interesting situation with what's going on inside the Jehovah's Witnesses' minds when it comes to preaching, because I think it's really settling into them that it doesn't really matter if you're knocking on someone's door or not. Your results are going to be exactly the same. So it's really starting to boil down to how can you just manage to make this performative? You're never going to experience any type of result. So how can you do the performance in the least annoying way possible? Like this person says, put on some normal clothes, don't talk about God, and go and sit on a bench. And that is counted as preaching. No, that's you going for a walk and sitting on a bench. So let's take a look at what the new meta progression of Jehovah's Witness preaching looks like, because it's even a farther divergence from what I am familiar with than what we already read about. So someone said that there's not much that the elders can do apart from giving a local needs talk. Maybe they just need to talk to some other people. And the original poster said, I think the elders set the lead. If the elders set the lead and came on in the ministry with their wives, there would at least be a few more people out. Unfortunately, not many of our appointed men like the ministry, so they simply don't do it. I think this is true. I don't think that this lady is being hyperbolic or making it up. I think this is a level of authenticity. And just from reading her interactions with people and what she's experiencing, I'm genuinely my heart goes out to this person because I know what it's like to have those feelings as a Jehovah's Witness. We'll get into that later, but when you really want to be a Jehovah's Witness and yet other people are kind of lackadaisical about it, I think it primes you for maybe just moving on to a different phase of your life. But how interesting that her observation is that, the elders, they don't really take it all that seriously anymore. Even from what she initially said, they don't really care about the hour requirement anymore. When I talked to the service overseer, he said it really wasn't that big of a deal. Why are you getting hung up about it? So I think that's very telling for the state of the Jehovah's Witness preaching work. And then someone else says, there is a single sister about your age in our congregation that works in Pioneers. She made a lot of friends on Zoom during the pandemic and will join their Zoom meetings for service when it fits her schedule. Have you contacted or connected to friends in different time zones so you have a group to work with at different times of the day? Someone replied to this, I'm no longer a pioneer, but I join an evening letter writing ministry on Wednesdays with a congregation in England. This person lives in Oregon, by the way, just for the association. It's at 11 a.m. for me. They are still active Zoom groups around. They might be a viable source at times. And then the original poster said, I don't have friends in my time zone. Never mind other time zones. Again, this is so sad. You want to be a Jehovah's Witness. You want to go and tell people about these beliefs that you hold so strong, that you're so convinced and convinced about. And yet the elders don't seem to want to do it. The people around you don't seem to want to do it. It's like they don't take their religion all that seriously anymore. And I think that this is going to be a very common thing that Jehovah's Witnesses are going to experience in the coming years. With all of the changes that the governing body has made, I think there are more and more people are just not going to be taking the religion very seriously and get a little bit loosey-goosey with it. so loosey-goosey that you'll have a person going full-on wackadoo cult mode with their suggestion. Someone suggested going to a local store and focusing on starting casual conversations. You can also do that at a doctor office waiting room. My wife and I have done that. We go to a waiting room for about an hour and try and start a conversation with anyone there. Then we go to a different waiting room. This has to be the most unhinged, culty method for preaching I've ever come across in my time. In all my years, I've never heard something this wacky. You rock up to a doctor's office. You know, you're sitting there, not filling out any paperwork, don't have an appointment. If anyone asks, my sciatica pancreatic hernia is really acted up these days. Oh, boy. And you just try and start up a conversation with people like, man, wouldn't it be nice to live in a world where you don't have to deal with them damn kidney stones? It's so strange. That is so weird. And to only stay there for a bit, you show up, you don't have an appointment, then you just leave. I wonder what the staff is thinking. Are these people crazy? We need to ban them. Make sure we get them on the CCTV so we can make sure they don't get through the front door. This is insane. Going to doctor's offices. Plus, maybe you're going to catch something. You're just going to be spreading germs all around the world. I don't think that's what we want, is people going from doctor's office to doctor's office, trying to contaminate and infect as many people as humanly possible. Now, here are some words from a longtime Jehovah's Witness that's in their 80s. At that time, to be a pioneer required not just a goal or a suggestion, 100 hours of various forms of the ministry, door-to-door, return visits, Bible studies each month. Pioneers reported their time individually directly to the branch. If one missed getting the required 100 hours 2 months in a row, they would get a letter from the branch wanting to know why. So they are familiar, as am I, with a more stringent version of pioneering. And I just thought that this was very interesting. I remember one day there was no one else in the congregation engaging in any sort of ministry, but I still had to put in my hours personally. I finally drove to a certain street in the territory and got out of the car by myself and began knocking on doors. At the time, that was the hardest thing I had ever done. In the years since then, there have been a couple of harder moments, but this one still sticks in my mind 60 years later. That's why I'm even making a video about this, because even having left the organization 10 years ago, I still very much remember those times of showing up by myself. And it was the most deflating, defeating thing. Like I said at the outset, it's easier to do a very strange, weird activity if there are other people that are doing it with you. But doing it by yourself is like being the first person out there on the dance floor, but then everyone else joins you and starts having a good time. But what if you just went out on the dance floor and no one else ever joined you? What if you just stood there like a drunk aunt at a wedding and no one else comes out on the dance floor to rescue you? No one else has the heart to just be like, you know what? You might want to just go sit down. You just stand there looking like a fool all by yourself. And that's what it feels like when you're doing this, preaching by yourself. And with comments continue. A pioneer sister in my congregation has her own cart, so she requested to have a station close to her house where she can be staying for cart witnessing at her own convenience. That way she can make her hours not depending on other publishers. To which the original poster replied, I have 8 carts in my garage as I look after them for the congregation, but no way to transport them to any of the location and no partner. I've asked multiple times on the congregation ministry WhatsApp group, my FM group, the pioneers chat, and to several people in person, but had no success. This woman has 8 witnessing carts in her garage and nothing. Can't even get someone to stand next to a cart with her. And I think that is going to become more and more normal in the coming few years. And then another person says, do not give up on letter writing. It's a valuable and proper way to carry out our ministry. To which she said, unfortunately, that's not how my elders, not all, but the ones on the service committee especially, view letter writing. We've been repeatedly told, particularly by the secretary, that letter writing isn't proper or quality, and that we shouldn't spend the majority of our hours doing it. I don't agree with the opinions, but I have been criticized when trying to arrange to do letter writing with others, so I just stopped, just to do it on my own instead. When I mentioned that I had spent most of my hours this month on letter writing during my shepherding visit, he wasn't happy and said it's better for me to not get my hours than in just do letter writing, because I should be focused on quality, not quantity. And then she also added in, letter writing is so expensive. Our circuit overseer has banned not-at-home letters, so sending them through the post is the only permitted way. But it's very costly, and I haven't got a lot of money to spend on stamps. This poor woman is really going through it. She so desperately wants to be a good Jehovah's Witness, and she is surrounded by people that, for their own mental health, for their own sanity, just to be able to survive as a Jehovah's Witness, are not taking it as seriously as she is. She wants to do the thing, be all in, and yet she can't get anyone to come alongside her. I think it's really telling that you have this experience where you're trying so hard to be a good little Jehovah's Witness, and yet it's not even good enough. You still get criticized. They still find something to nitpick about the thing that you're doing. Oh, you're getting most of your hours doing letter writing? You know you really shouldn't be doing all that damn letter writing. What do you want me to do? Like, seriously, I've tried for everything. I have the meeting for service set up in my house. I would know better than you how few people are actually showing up to go preaching. It's in my freaking house. And yet he has the audacity to criticize this poor woman who's just trying to be a good Jehovah's Witness. And then their circuit overseer having banned just walking, I assume when she means not at homes, like you carry a letter with you. And then you can count the time that you spent writing the letter. And if the person doesn't answer when you knock on the door, you could just like leave it in their mailbox or leave it by their door or something like that. Apparently that's been banned. That caused a little bit of controversy among the people on the JW Reddit. Some people were like, hey, he's not allowed to do that, and blah, 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 this, that, and the third. Anyway, we won't go on with this quest too much longer, but let me just read a couple more comments that I did find interesting. What about congregation carts? Could that be something another publisher would be happy to do? I've tried so many times. Even elders have commented on the fact that so many people read my messages on the congregation ministry chat and no one replies. Other pioneers have actually laughed at the fact that I didn't have any response. Use public transportation to get to your location with the cart. This could be a conversation starter on the bus. Our service overseer wouldn't be happy with that, and I don't know if I'd be able to practically use the bus by my house. It's like a minibus, so it has very little room. In years past, I actually did door-to-door alone and managed to persevere a few times. We've been told sisters aren't allowed to do house-to-house or return visits on their own. It's not safe. I think you need to change congregations. This is the real advice. I'm starting to think it's my only option. So many other people have left our congregation. Not all for the same reason, but there are way more going out of the back door than we've got coming in through the front door. I feel like I'm just going round in circles in this congregation. I think your fellow pioneers need a good talking to. A big problem with that is the service overseer's wife is the ringleader of their clique, so they're all untouchable. This series of comments perfectly sums up what it's like being a Jehovah's Witness nowadays, I guess. You can't do anything right. You can only do everything wrong. And if you're not one of the popular ones, then you're just out of luck entirely. It sounds like she's going through a hard time because maybe other pioneers don't like her very much. And this is fairly common. It's happened in every single congregation I've ever been in. There are just very unpopular people that no one wants to go out in service with them. No one wants to be with them. And they're part of the out group. They might not even be like a weird, crazy person. It could just be something completely random, or they are just cliques inside of a congregation where people are just like, nope, you're not part of our group. But how interesting. People, elders laughing at her like, oh, people don't want to, I see how people always are reading your messages, but no one replies. Huh, isn't that hilarious? That's insane. Absolutely insane what this poor woman is going through. So with all of that, I just want to go on a little bit of a rant because I think this represents a paradigm shift that the organization has never really seen before. It used to be that in order to be a Jehovah's Witness, you had to be the hardcore one. You had to stay in the middle of the congregation. That was the meta for staying, having friends, having a good routine, being well liked in the organization. You had to be a very strong witness. And yet, with all of the major changes that they've been making, and essentially having watered down their entire religion, read any Watchtower, and the newer ones are so simple and so watered down as if they're talking to children. In the Congregation Bible Study, they're literally studying a children's book. Everything is about a video made for someone with a very low IQ versus, actual biblical scholarship. The point is the current governing body has been watering down the religion so much that now I think it's easier to be a less serious Jehovah's Witness. The people that used to be on the outskirts of the congregation, almost marginalized because they didn't take the religion very seriously, I think that is what you have to do in order to be well liked, to be well respected, to get along with others. And that is like a new phenomenon. I don't think that has ever existed in Jehovah's Witness culture, at least that I'm familiar with. But how interesting that Watchtower has managed to make people that don't want to take the religion seriously, the people that don't actually fully buy in, they don't fully believe the governing body, they don't really listen to everything, they've made it such that those are the ones that will be more successful in their religion. And this is something that I've hinted at in the past. I made a video, why people are leaving the organization, why they're leaving the Jehovah's Witness, why no one wants to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore. And one of the conclusions that I came to was, I think going forward, I made this like a year ago, that it's going to be easier for the people that hold to those hardcore beliefs to leave. I think it's going to be easier for the ones that are familiar with how things used to be to wake up and recognize that this isn't the religion that it's pretending to be anymore. I think growing up with this lackadaisical culture and it's just kind of a vibe rather than a very hardcore Armageddon's right around the corner situation, I think that the people, the most hardcore believing Jehovah's Witnesses, are going to be the ones that leave. And you're only going to have the very lackadaisical ones. And that is going to be an interesting time. Because the more and more and more people are just like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. I think it's going to just turn the religion into an online activity. I think it's going to just turn it into a social thing. It's going to be a community. I think they'll continue to water it down until it becomes more like other religions. Less of a cult, less out there, less strange, and just more tele-evangelist. Make sure you have your donations set up so that way you have the sunk cost fallacy. The more you're investing into it, the more likely you are to stay with it. I think that's what the religion will be. I mean, even the idea of, people aren't even showing up to the meetings for service, but they're going online and getting together to do Zoom service. I don't even know what that looks like. I think you just sit around chatting with other Jehovah's Witnesses. It becomes a social club. All Watchtower has to do to profit off of this Just have it be like some type of subscription service. Instead of using Zoom, they can have Jwoom. Just start Jwoom. And that actually sounds a little strange now that I say it a couple times out loud, but the Jehovah's Witnesses are strange, so we're just going to run with it. And just, you charge people, brothers and sisters, if you want to use the Jwoom, it'll be $3-4 a month. And people will do it, and yeah, they can monitor it. They can, maybe for legal purposes, they wouldn't want to do it. But I feel like they would do something like that. It would be profitable, and it would make people feel special, and they could find community that they're looking for. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but I don't see the hardcore Jehovah's Witnesses being able to stay in that religion at the end of the day. I was one of those that for a long time took the religion very seriously, and part of that was why I ended up leaving. A lot of the people that I talked to were very serious about their religion, and they are the ones that also left. So I don't know what you do with a handful of Jehovah's Witnesses that don't really believe the governing body are spokespersons for God anymore. I think your religion is very weak, and you're not going to have a lot of control that you can exercise over people. So it'll be fascinating what the governing body does in response as they become aware of this fact that they are losing that control, and whether or not they want to double down and try and capture that good old days of controlling people's lives, or if they're just kind of happy with this billion-dollar machine that they've created. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below as always. And with all of that, stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to spend more time loving the things you love than hating the things you hate. And you better have a good ass day.